Great, so hello and welcome everybody to our very special webinar where we are launching the UK's first jobs website for modern slavery survivors. We're really excited to share more about Bright Future Co-operative and how we are supporting survivors of modern slavery from exploitation to employment. So my name is Misha, I'm the manager of Bright Future Co-operative, and I'll hand over to Amy.
Yeah, and like I said, my name is Amy Bond, so I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Causeway, and I also have the privilege of sitting on the Board of Directors for the Bright Future Co-operative. We're really excited to have you with us today for the next hour or so, as we're going to share a little bit more with you about the future of Bright Future and the development of our new referral platform. And like I say, we're going to be hearing from our esteemed panel of guest speakers who will share a really important insight into the importance of accessible routes into a safe employment. Just a couple of really practical points. We are recording today's webinar so that we can circulate it for anybody who is unavailable during this and post it on our platforms. And we will be creating space for questions at the end. So if there's anything that myself or Misha share or anything that one of our panel members share that you want to know a little bit more about, please pop it in the chat. You can do so as we're going along. That's no problem at all. And then we'll come back to the questions at the end and direct them into the chat, or there is a Q&A function. Thank you, Edwin, at the top of your screen as well, where you can direct questions as well. And you can send those questions. They can be directed towards any of the members of our panel today or any of our speakers. So I'm going to keep referencing this wonderful panel that we've got, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves as well before we go any further. So if I come to you, Pete, first to introduce yourself, that would be amazing.
Thanks, Amy. So Pete Westall, Chief Values Officer of Mid Counties Co-op, which is one of the largest co-ops in the UK. Also my privilege to be chair of Bright Future Co-op, which I've done for the last 5 years. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you. We've also got Dame Sarah Thornton with us today.
Good morning, everybody. Sarah Thornton was formerly the UK's Independent Anti-Slavery Commissioner. I now work as an advisor and an academic in modern slavery and human trafficking.
Thanks so much. Ian, we have with us. Ian, are you able to introduce yourself?
Hello. I can't seem to turn my camera on, but
that's okay. We'll hopefully get there later in the webinar.
Fine. I'm Ian Siddons. I'm the HR business partner for Greencore. We have a number of sites up and down the country, and we've been working with Bright Future to bring survivors into our business.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And if it's working, are we able to come to Neil?
I don't think he's currently in. I think he's still struggling with some tech issues, unfortunately. We'll hopefully come to him a bit later.
We will come back to Neil from Tripad a little bit later on. So we will continue on from there. So Misha, back to you then.
Yes, great. So as you mentioned, Bright Future, we've been supporting survivors of modern slavery into safe employment since 2017. Since that time and through our programme, we've supported nearly 100 survivors into safe employment. Or had them experience safe employment through the programme, and we're really determined to make sure that these opportunities are available to all survivors across the UK to give them more than just a paycheck, but really to give them control over their futures.
And for those of you that are aware of modern slavery, if you don't work in this sector or haven't really come across it as part of your business, modern slavery is a horrendous crime where traffickers take control of another human for their own profit. And this is often through exploiting an existing vulnerability. Now, this control can be physical in the form of false imprisonment or physical abuse, and it often also takes the form of extreme physical and psychological abuse as well, which is leaving individuals feeling a real loss of their sense of self and identity. Survivors have often faced threats and have been forced into inescapable debt and threatened with harm from authority figures by their exploiters, and often as a result, very understandably, they experience shame or a lack of confidence in themselves. And so that's where Causeway along with partnerships with businesses like yours, come in. Because at Causeway, we support survivors of modern slavery across the whole of the north of England at all stages of their recovery, from safe house support to supporting survivors in their community and into long-term support. And like many of the charities that we're working with, we identified that survivors were making really significant steps in their recovery, but hitting a really substantial roadblock when it came to their long-term goals, specifically around securing stable employment. As a result of this and the associated difficulties with accessing financial stability and a sense of identity and assurance, it was leading many survivors back into exploitative situations and preventing them from becoming like truly independent. So if you think about, if I was to go around and ask you to introduce yourself today, you would introduce yourself like we all have done up to this point, with your name and what you do. And though what you do and what your career title is doesn't form the entirety of your identity by any stretch, it does form quite a substantial part of it. It's a significant part of your sense of assurance, your sense of identity, your sense of personal fulfillment. And so if you imagine the significant barrier to that for our service users and the impact that it has, but not only that, if you had a justified fear of the people potentially offering that, then it would be a really significant roadblock to your overall sense of identity and fulfillment. And a huge proportion of our service users entered into their exploitation as a result of people claiming to offer employment and going on to exploit them further down the line. And that's why we've created Bright Future in partnership with the Co-op Group, to see how we could ensure survivors would not struggle to access safe employment, not struggle to have their human rights stripped away again, but partner with safe and responsible businesses with a social conscience to treat people with the dignity that they deserve. And we're really honoured by the businesses that have done that in partnership with us over the last few years. And in 2020, after a successful 3 years of growth, Bright Future Co-operative was established, bringing together more businesses and more charities to establish this goal. So what we are is we're a fast-track pathway into safe employment for survivors of modern slavery. And our mission is to see survivors living with dignity, with freedom, and believe that it's an accessible route to employment. We know that stable employment, like Misha says, is more than a paycheck, but it gives survivors financial freedom and the agency to use their existing skills that many of them come with to upskill them for their future careers, and it gives them control over their future, which is something that we so often take for granted, but is so rewarding when we see it with our service users. Misha?
Yes, excellent. And we know that there is power in partnerships, and that is what makes Bright Future so strong. So we're thrilled to be working with 12 businesses across the UK who are committed to our vision and values and really committed to providing that supportive environment for our candidates. These businesses understand that we're working with a very talented and motivated and resilient demographic who may just need an extra bit of support and understanding as they're re-entering into the workplace. Because we're working with some survivors who have experience of safe employment in the UK, who may want to be accessing employment through us because of the opportunities that we have on board. But we're also working with survivors who, for them, this might be their first experience of safe employment since their exploitation. So having these businesses on board to understand those vulnerabilities just makes all the difference to help candidates settle in, both in terms of their performance, but also their well-being. So together with our business members, we're working with referrer members. So these are our organisations across the UK who are working directly with survivors in their recovery, and really importantly, who have built up that relationship of trust with them. The feedback that we often get from our candidates is having these familiar faces with them along the journey just really helps them feel at ease as they're accessing employment again. So together, this collaborative approach just really ensures that survivors who meet our eligibility criteria have access to the opportunities available through Bright Future. So how does it work? We've really built Bright Future to kind of overcome many of the obstacles that survivors usually face when accessing employment, and balancing this with the operational needs of our businesses to fill those vacancies. So candidates essentially start as new employees and just have an additional 4 weeks of support as they start in the roles. They start just as any other new starters, so they receive the same training, the same induction, but a key part of the programme is that they are not identified as coming from Bright Future to their peers. So this anonymity really empowers survivors to share only as much as they feel comfortable about their past, and means that they're not primarily identified by their history. And we've had a candidate explain to us, I finally feel normal. It doesn't matter what I've gone through in the past. I'm accessing this just like any other new starter. And I think that's really powerful, and something that we're really trying to encourage throughout the process is mirroring this as much as possible to the usual recruitment process, to give them that understanding of how it works outside of Bright Future, but to create that empowerment throughout the process, and really making sure that they're developing that relationship with the business so they can continue to raise any questions they have with them once the process is finished. So since 2017, we've had 86 candidates complete that 4-week placement with the business, and 66 of those have been offered and accepted permanent contracts, which is incredible because that's 66 people who may not have secured employment independently. And we've continued to grow and develop from the feedback from our members and from candidates. And I think this is really reflected in the fact that last year, 90% of our candidates who completed that 4-week placement secured those permanent roles. And we know the impact that safe employment has in the lives of survivors. We've had candidates who have started in one role and progressed quite quickly to their preferred future. We've had candidates learn how to drive, access their own accommodation, and even down to, we had a candidate who, with his first paycheck, told us that he was taking his family out for a pub meal because he hadn't been able to do that in years. And I think it's just incredible. We don't say this lightly. This is a life-changing program, and we really wanted to build on this. We wanted to build on our understanding, build on our impact, and make sure that the process was even more accessible so we could bring in more businesses and more charities to offer more opportunities to survivors. So that's why we made the decision to launch the UK's first jobs website for survivors of modern slavery. Amy, I'll hand back to you.
Yeah, so as I'm talking, we're going to do a little quick demo of the platform. But ultimately, like we said, Bright Future has been running for several years now. And like Misha says, we've seen, almost 100 lives changed as a result of incredible businesses like yourselves offering safe employment routes. What we also recognised is whilst we've been scaling this project, it's been running very manually, reliant on a very small team, working very closely with businesses in a way that potentially has a risk of slowing down the scalability of this project. And the scalability isn't important as a result of us growing a name or growing a function, but it's as a result of us being able to see more survivors back into employment. And so in really considering in partnership with the board what we could do to enhance this Bright Future programme, we made the decision to launch, as Misha says, the first ever recruitment platform specifically dedicated to supporting and offering employment opportunities for survivors of modern slavery. And honestly, we couldn't be more excited about it because even as we've only launched it in the last few weeks, we've already seen the percentage increase of people being able to be referred into the programme substantially increase. Now, why is this really important? Ultimately, there's a number of factors. What it does for the survivor is it replicates what the real job market is like in regards to the employment and application process. This job website is extremely slick. The user interface is amazing. Thank you, Neil and Tripad. We'll come back to you in a few minutes. But what it does is it's indicative of a real life jobs function. So in partnership with their support worker, they can identify not only the roles available, but how they'll be remunerated for the roles, what the travel and work expectations are like, a bit about what the team and the business is like, so that we can work with your business to really set expectation about what this role looks like and really set up your employer brand as part of this. But it's indicative of the sort of experience that somebody would go through in their long-term interview process and application process. It also, we recognise, especially coming out of substantial financial changes in the market, filling job opportunities for businesses is really important, and we want to honour that. We believe we have candidates and have been seen to have candidates that add enormous value into the workplace, but we also recognise often the pace of filling vacancies is a really important aspect for businesses. So having real-time vacancy availability is a really important aspect for us, so that at any point in time a business can post a vacancy in partnership with us, and a service user can immediately identify identify and apply for that vacancy without having to wait week on week to see what might be available in their given area. So it really works for businesses and for candidates in a way that we really hope will enhance, and is already being seen to enhance the accessibility of this programme. Like I said, since we started using this process, last week alone, we had 5 referrals of service users, and we currently have over 50 job opportunities available for survivors across the country. And we continue to be determined to have even more opportunities available in different sectors. We can template the job roles to make it really quick and easy for us to share vacancies, so it's not laborious for businesses or for the team. And this is particularly beneficial for business members who share roles with us that they need posting quickly. And like I say, candidates can set up alerts to notify them when jobs become available in their area, so that they themselves can initiate that application process as well, which is really exciting. We've referenced TribePad a little bit, and so I'm going to hand over to Misha to have a conversation with Neil, who I am thrilled to see that we can see. We did it, yay tech. But we're going to have a little conversation with TribePad now, so over to you, Misha.
Great, thanks so much. Hi Neil, we're really thrilled for you to join us today. Please could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about TribePad just before we get started?
Yeah, good morning, Misha. Hi, Amy. Hi, everybody. Thank you, firstly, for having us. We're really proud to be working, with an organisation like Causeway Bright Future that's making such a difference to people's lives. My name's Neil Armstrong. I work at a technology company called TribePad, and we provide recruitment software into 200 of the UK's best known organisations. So, if you're selling sausage rolls in Greggs, telling the weather with the Met Office, or even a vicar in the Church of England, those people have sort of found their jobs and been hired through TribePad. So our mission is all about making recruitment fairer, faster and better. So some of the things Amy mentioned there about making the technology accessible so that everybody has opportunity, being able to advertise the roles and apply really quickly so that you can attract the right staff, and effectively matching this talent to organisations who are looking to grow. And we really believe in making a positive impact on society. The right job is life-changing. It's so linked to your well-being, your financial wealth, the health status of your family. So helping people, particularly from the challenging backgrounds that we're working with on this programme, really makes us proud. So thank you for working with us on this. It's a real privilege.
Great, thanks so much, Neil. So we've mentioned quite a bit how our goal was to create a platform that was very accessible, that would allow us to work closely with our businesses to fill their vacancies. Can you share a little bit more in detail how we've managed to do that, through the platform that TribePad's provided?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we recognise that employers are incredibly busy. Everybody's being asked to be more productive, do more with less, make budgets stretch further, and yet we all have challenges of trying to find the right talent to get people into the roles. And most organisations, of course, are trying to do the right thing from a corporate social responsibility, diversity, inclusion, and equality point of view. So using technology to help organisations find that talent from different talent pools, it ticks so many corporate objectives. And as you say, that having a really usable platform in terms of being rapidly able to advertise your jobs, use templates that you've used before, pre-agreed, perhaps sort of scorecards and things like that to be able to attract people. And then the criticality of offering a really good candidate experience. Most people are searching for a job on a mobile phone if they're on the train or the bus or the sofa. So making it really easy and simple for the candidate to understand why they should work in your organisation. And then helping employers, really quickly attract and sift and process those candidates, I think is really key. And we have mentioned about accessibility. We're really passionate about making sure, whether that's from people with visual disabilities or neurodiverse conditions, are able to interact with the platform and not be put off. And then, of course, as you'd expect with a platform, we handle something like 15 million job applications a year. Safety, security, stability, making sure you're fully compliant with data protection laws is an absolute must and a given for all of us in these times. So hopefully that is helping the partnership and the cooperative deliver on your objectives.
Definitely, yes. I think it's just been a dream come true seeing our referral process be digitalized, seeing it in such an easy, accessible way. And yes, just thank you so much to you and your team for making this a dream come true for us. And we're really excited to continue working with you in the future.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a real pleasure for us, and we're really looking forward to see how Bright Future evolves. You know, the numbers you're already talking about, there's so many people in need of this help, and I think you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Neil. Real pleasure to hear from you, and glad we were able to see and hear from you too, which is wonderful. Great. Well, we're going to move on to our conversation with the rest of our panel now, because we're really grateful. I'm going to first come to wonderful Dame Sarah Thornton, who, as we referenced in the introduction, was previously the UK's Independent Anti-Slavery Commissioner. Sarah, tell us a little bit more about what the landscape of modern slavery looks like right now and during your time as the Commissioner, and how you think Bright Future Co-operative, I guess, fits into what you see to be the needs of survivors.
So although slavery and trafficking are often very hidden, we do know that 17,000 potential victims were identified last year. Mm-hmm. In fact, that's way less than the global estimates, which would suggest in the UK there's about 120,000 victims of slavery and trafficking. So these are people working in a range of different sectors. So sometimes in construction, sometimes in agriculture, food production, social care, nail bars, car washes, sex industry and exploitation there, a wide range of situations in which people have often been trafficked to this country, but actually quite a lot of UK citizens as well. So it's a significant issue, but very often hidden. And we often talk about it being hidden in plain sight. And actually, if you just looked around you a little bit more carefully, you might be shocked at just how close it is. And, you know, compared with other countries in the UK, we're pretty good at what was often called rescuing victims. So when a victim is identified, putting that support around them immediately. But when I was Commissioner, I felt that there needed to be just as much emphasis on long-term recovery. So including issues such as support if people have been really badly traumatized, counselling, legal advice about their immigration status, housing, maybe education, maybe English language lessons, but also really importantly, access to employment or pathways to employment, because that's really important in terms of people's ability to be sustainably independent. Because as you said earlier on, very often people have been exploited through their desire to work. And I remember when I was first Commissioner coming to Manchester for a Bright Future event. I think we were listening to an evaluation which said it had made a difference. But what struck me and what I still remember from that event is some of the survivors who were on the programme talking and just realising how transformational it had been for them. You know, it really does make an important impact on people's lives. More recently, I volunteer at a safe house in London, and talking to the survivors there, it's very apparent just how much trying to get good work is important to them and their sense of recovery. So what you're doing is really, really important.
Thanks so much. And I guess, so you talked really articulately about the value of this programme. Obviously, there's a number of businesses represented on this call today. In your opinion, why is it important for businesses to focus on remediation around this issue?
Partly because of the harm that is done in business. You know, a lot of people are exploited in work. So I think there's a sense of moral responsibility. But one of the things I do now is I work for an investment management company called CCLA. And we benchmarked the top UK 100 companies last year, and we're going to do so again this year, on their disclosures and their activities to address modern slavery and human trafficking. And as you might expect, the big companies had all the policies in place. Sometimes the practice was not as good as the policies, of course, but the weakest area is what's called remedy. So once you've identified that somebody's been harmed, that they've been exploited, What are you doing to put it right? And across companies, that was the weakest area. And one of the things that strikes me is that Bright Future is a way in which companies can say, we want to address this. You know, it might not even be addressing harm that we've caused, but we want to play our part in providing remedy for those who have been exploited in the past. And, you know, I think businesses are interested, and clearly there are quite a few on the line today. We held a round table with leaders in the construction sector, an investor roundtable a few months ago, and a survivor who had been exploited in the construction industry spoke very powerfully about the importance of this. And, you know, you could have heard a pin drop when she was speaking, but also I know that afterwards several of the businesses came forward and said, look, can we get involved? Because actually this is a very practical way in which we can demonstrate our commitment to anti-trafficking, our commitment to the support for survivors.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sarah. No doubt we'll come back to you shortly, but if I could just move on to Ian for a second, if we can hear from him, see him. Ooh.
Hello.
Yay! Hi, Ian. Ian, I don't think you got a chance to introduce yourself at the start, so would you like to start off by doing that?
Yes, of course. I'm the HR business partner for Greencore. I've been working with Bright Future now for a couple of years, and we've, I suppose, successfully managed to employ some survivors and integrate them into our business.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit more about that then, Ian, in terms of how that's been for you as a process, and how Greencore is, I guess, created a supportive workplace for survivors of modern slavery.
I think we're very confident around the working environment. So one of the things that we've been able to do is ensure that people can come in to that environment in a safe way. And the real trick, I suppose, is getting it into a place where you bring them in as a new employee, because they come in anonymously, but you still have to look after them, and you still have to have that little bit of extra care while they're with you. And it's having those little check-ins and working with them around making sure they're settling in, making sure they're starting to sort of talk to people and making friends and associations as time goes on. One of our guys, when she first started, she turned up 2 hours before the day started. She was 2 hours in before a shift. She was that keen, and just didn't want to be late, so she just made sure she got there early. And I've got to say, she's still with us, and she's growing in stature. She's growing in relationships around the site. She now has a good group of friends. She's moved out of her original home and is now set up and got her own home. So there's a lot of real positives that going through an experience like this can really work. And she's taking on more responsibility at work. She's growing as an employee and a member of our team as well, which I'm really, really pleased about. And that took some time. Yeah. Because the first time we brought her in, it didn't quite work. She started her first shift. She started the shift with probably about 300 people all starting at the same time. And it was a bit overwhelming. She almost lost control of where she was and handed in her uniform and decided to go home and said, no, this isn't what I want to do. But we were able, with Bright Future, with the support network that we've got, to talk to her, get her back in, sit down and talk to her about how we can help and how we can work around that. And the really good piece of work we did was we were able to understand what her triggers were, and the noise, the people, the surroundings were too intense for her initially. So we found her a different department, a different area of the business that was a little quieter, smaller teams, and that worked really well. And ever since, she's just gone from strength to strength to strength.
That's incredible.
Really good.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Ian. And I think you highlight a really important point that that it can be, you know, it's a really big step for many survivors. You think about first day workplace nerves, they're huge irrespective of who you are or your background, and we can't
Absolutely.
possibly preempt the additional level of, you know, anxiety and stress involved for people with a background in exploitation. So the adaptability of the businesses is amazing to hear, and really important. And I think also it reinforcing that point of, you know, it's not a day one start on the job and the Bright Future Cooperative disappear. There's a, you know, a really supportive environment for several months into that process to really make sure, like you say, that we can work together to make sure that this placement is a success, and clearly goes on to be in instances like the one that you speak of, which is really amazing. It just requires that collaborative commitment to making things a success. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing, Ian. I'll come back to you in a few minutes, but Pete, if I can come over to you, obviously as chair of the Bright Future Cooperative Board, and I guess day one pioneer of this process, the success stories that we're speaking of, you've played an enormous part in making sure that happens, and really believing in this project from day one and seeing the need for this project. Talk to me a little bit from the perspective of Mid-Counties Cooperative, and how supporting survivors of modern slavery has really contributed to the social value and sustainability goals in the organisation from your perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. And it's worth saying, I think, to everybody, first and foremost, the support that Causeway have given this, don't underestimate. From a service level provider, it's just been exceptional. So thank you, first and foremost. Amy, can I step back and do this in a slightly different way before I talk about mid-counties? Because one of the things Sarah mentioned is about businesses being involved, and obviously from Neil's point of view or Ian's point of view, many on the call. It's not Bright Futures as a programme anymore, it's Bright Futures Co-op. And that is absolutely essential, and explain why. Co-ops in the UK do about £34 billion a year to the economy. There's about 7,500 of them, and they range from housing to agriculture to food retail to funeral, the list goes on. Broadly speaking, they all share the same principles and the same values, and those principles which are crucial for us is voluntary and open membership, democratic member control, education, training and information, and concern for a community. So whereas this was originally set up as a programme, the question becomes, how do you then give certainty and long-term stability? If you set it up as a co-op, get technical for a sec, set it up as a multi-stakeholder co-op, you have three different types of members. One, Neil, Ian, Mid-Counties, Currys, Speedy Services, and Amelia's on the call, as business members. They will generally contribute financial resource. One is referral members. I know Emily's on from Sophie Hayes Foundation. We've also got Salvation Army. We've got Hope for Justice, etc. And then crucially, the third type is the lived experience. And we've talked about the voice of that experience. You've talked about the survivors. But crucially, as a co-op, it is one member, one vote. So we now have a long-term business structure that enables anybody to join, anybody to then take control of this organisation and help shape it for the benefit of all. And then you go to Mid-Counties, who are a cooperative, one of the largest. We've got a purpose statement which talks about the power of cooperation to get a fairer, more sustainable and ethical future. So what does that mean in practice? What it means is our 700,000 member owners of Mid-Counties Co-op looking to us and Sarah, your point, don't just have modern slavery policies, do something and do something over and above. And that's where we then looked at it to say, okay, if we set this programme up as a multi-stakeholder co-op with owners being all those three different categories, we should then be able to provide employment and do more than just a modern slavery statement which appears on a website and we all look at it and say we're doing the best we can. And to illustrate that, Amy, in terms of what it means for us, it's great in terms of the credibility it gives, obviously, but the fact we are making a difference to people's lives in employment, those people who perhaps wouldn't have opportunities, is huge. We run a childcare business as well as travel, food, other aspects. We employed a modern slavery survivor through Bright Futures Co-op as a cleaner. And that individual told us that she wanted to be a childcare practitioner, work with childcare, etc. I could think of a million reasons why you would say, well, hang on a second, that would create a problem, etc. But I could think of one very good reason why you would do that. And one of the proudest moments we've had as a business is an email from that individual saying she's now qualified as a childcare practitioner with us. She has her own flat and she just passed a driving test. You can look at this and say, well, is that going to change the world? Maybe not, but it will change one individual. It will change her family's lives and it will change people around her lives. That's why we got involved, to do more than just simply saying we have a statement on the website. But crucially, apologies for labouring the point, that's why it's essential we are a cooperative business for that multi-stakeholder approach, which gives us stability and resilience in the long term.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Pete. Ian, if I could pop back to you for a second. You've talked a lot about the benefits to the survivor and to the wider organisation in regards to incorporating survivors of modern slavery into your workforce. How is that helped that an inclusive and diverse kind of workforce perspective? What benefits have you seen from adding that extra element of diversity back into your workforce at Greencore?
For me personally, it adds a lot, because obviously I know all the individuals that we've taken on and that are in our site, and that I'm very proud seeing them develop within the business. Equally, we have a fortunate situation in that we're quite a diverse business, but this just adds into the complexity of that. And I would assume as people establish themselves and they may start to talk to others about their lives, and that would educate the people within the business as well. We do a lot of work with modern slavery from an educational point of view for our managers and staff. But obviously working with people that have survived will be a real big step up.
Amazing. And we've talked a lot about the benefits of the survivor and the power of hearing those individual stories. Pete and Ian, you both drawn on specific examples in your own workforces, but we just wanted to take a moment to share with all of you a video that we recently produced with one of our incredible individuals that's come through the Bright Future Co-operative. So Misha, I'm going to pop back to you to hopefully successfully share that video for everybody.
Yeah, so unfortunately, this candidate was unable to join us today. He was really hoping to be able to come and speak to you all live, but thankfully we have created this video which really shows the importance of our programme from his perspective. So we'll just share that now.
Misha, I don't believe the sound is coming through on this.
Okay, great. Let me try again.
Sorry, we did say that technical hiccups are inevitable.
Let's try take two.
I worked 80 hours and he gave me 100 quid and it was fake money. He introduced me to organised crime. We entered the warehouse and we emptied all these things out the washing machine, about 8 blocks of cocaine. And he went to me, your fingerprints are right now and there's no way out of it. You open your mouth once, I'll slit your throat, I'll have your legs broke, I'll get you shot. Wherever you go, I'll find you. He hooked me basically. If you stick with me for a few more and you'd have the luxury lifestyle, but it was all a lie. It's easy to get into that situation, it's hard to get out of that situation. And that's when I met Steve, my little guardian angel. Just love it, absolutely love going to work. We're all one big family, and that's what we all are in Currys. We're one massive family. Everyone's equal. There's no judgment of nobody. I'm not angry no more. every day I get praises. I'm not used to all this praises. A few years ago, I'll tell you the truth, I was that close to taking my life. It's like my life meaning now. I'm just in a happy place now.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so as you can see, it's just one example of I guess just a life being radically changed for in a really negative way through that trapped and coercion, but really amazing business partner in the form of Currys, offering him a business opportunity that's gone on to really change his life in the long term. So we're going to move over to some questions now. Misha, I'm going to direct this one to you to answer from a Bright Future perspective. Is this question, is this available only to those that have gone through the NRM process and are formally identified as victims? So maybe if you could talk a little bit about the eligibility criteria for a second, that would be fantastic.
Yes, excellent, really important question. So short answer is no. So we're working with organisations who are supporting survivors directly. All we say is that there should be a positive reasonable grounds decision, but even if that's not in place and the organisation believes that they are a survivor of modern slavery, we do lean on professional discretion there as well. We didn't want that to be a limiting factor to people accessing employment, especially for those who are still in the national referral mechanism. So what we're really looking for is survivors who are at quite a stable part of their recovery. So part of the eligibility criteria is stable accommodation, stable mental health. Obviously, our candidates are always going to be living with some level of trauma, but we just need to make sure that they are feeling comfortable going into the workplace where they'll be mixing with lots of other people. And then just practical things, their own bank account, national insurance number, and obviously the right to work. Yes, that was kind of one of the ways we wanted to break down any obstacles, was making sure it was accessible as possible.
Great, fantastic. Thanks, Misha. A question for Sarah. Do you anticipate that the programme like this would be well positioned to contribute to any form of academic research or wider kind of policy and decision making?
So the first time I came across Bright Future was after the University of Liverpool had done that evaluation. So I know that you understand the importance of getting independent evaluation right from the start, which is really key. Also, when I was the Anti-Slavery Commissioner, we did some research on what was available, what sort of pathways, both in terms of pathways into work and access to education. And actually, there were very few pathways. This is a kind of like a shining, bright future example, because I think it absolutely is key. So I don't know whether you're thinking about doing any more evaluation, but as it grows bigger, to think about actually what difference the platform makes might be something to look at. But I always think it's important, particularly if you're trying to influence policymakers, politicians, to be able to say this has been independently evaluated and this has been the impact, I think is really, really important. But I also think, as I said earlier, we do need to think not just about short-term rescue, but think about long-term. How do we protect people from being exploited into the future? And this is why it's absolutely key.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah. Misha, we've had a few questions about the practicalities of accessing the platform. So in terms of, if you could talk about the process of support workers accessing the platform on behalf of survivors accessing it themselves, and where we foresee this going in the future, that would be amazing.
Yes, definitely. So as we've spoken about quite a lot, and as Pete really highlighted, we are a cooperative, so we're made up of member organisations joining our mission and our values. So in order to access the platform, you would need to be a member of Bright Future Co-operative. So if you're on this call and you would like to be involved and have more information about that, please feel free to email us. We'd be really happy to set up a discussion to discuss it in more detail. So at the moment, the referrer members of the support organisations are accessing the platform on behalf of candidates. They're able to share the direct link to candidates, so it is really accessible for them. And I think this is why the platform is so exciting. It will really allow us to innovate and continue to grow, and hopefully very soon we'll be able to have candidates accessing the platform directly themselves as well, just as part of our empowerment journey. So that's the longer term goal, but we're just really so thrilled that it's been set up now and we've already had such high engagement. I think it's really building well for the future.
Amazing, thank you. We've had a question about whether or not the roles are primarily aimed at men due to the nature of the work. I guess our solid answer back to that would be absolutely not. We are currently offering vacancies across 5 different sectors, including childcare and retail, manufacturing, warehousing. She's going to have to remind me of the 5th because it's just fallen out the back of my head.
Administration and
thank
security.
You. So yeah, I guess first and foremost, I would say, you know, I wouldn't gender specific allocate any type of role. There is no specific requirement around any of these roles, and it's all about knowing what the individual really wants to do with their career path and their future. I think equally we're looking continuously to businesses to diversify the roles available into different nature of work and job types, also making sure that we have roles that fit a certain type, fit all aspects of health needs and diversity aspects, but absolutely not. I guess we're looking at all gender identity survivors across all age groups as well. So no, absolutely we're committed to offering a range of vacancies from that perspective.
Sorry, Amy, just to jump in there as well. You may have noticed that on the job description, what we try to include is details about the working environment, and that allows candidates, before they move forward with the role, to really understand where they'll be working. And in there, we include details if there is a certain gender-dominated workforce, or the temperature, the noise. And what this does is it really allows candidates to picture themselves and get a feel for the role before moving forward with it. So that's just something that we've included as part of the process.
Great. We've also had a question around whether the website offers jobs only to survivors who are physically present in the UK at the moment, or those living outside of the UK. At the moment, we are UK specific. You never know in terms of long-term expansion, but at this point in time, we are focused on, there is a very real, very prevalent need in the UK for roles. And for those, as Sarah said at the start, there were 17,000 survivors identified last year alone. And so we're focusing first and foremost on that at this point in time, but never say never. Let me just have questions. Are there any checks carried out on the businesses, particularly regarding safeguarding measures in place when it comes to trauma-informed care? I don't know if Misha and maybe Ian, you want to chip in on anything around that in terms of making sure effective measures are in place. But maybe Misha, if you could speak first a little bit to the business partner agreement and how that works, and then Ian, if you can chip in from a first-hand experience, that would be great.
Yes, definitely. So it is part of our process whenever we are welcoming new businesses, just to have an insight into the different policies that they have in place. And part of that is safeguarding and yes, a whole other array of different policies. But one thing that we do offer with all of our business members as Bright Future is full training about modern slavery, the impacts that it can have on survivors, and really advice to working with vulnerable people. And we've had really great feedback from this. And I think the main thing is just really helping them understand that in the times of crisis, that's where we step in. Even though majority of placements go through very smoothly, the support from Bright Future is available throughout those 4 weeks placements and further if it's needed. But yes, it's very collaborative. We offer that full training and insight and expertise just to really make sure that survivors are in a good position in the workplace. But I'll hand over to Ian. Hopefully he can provide a first-hand experience.
Well, from our point of view, when we've engaged with you guys, we've had what you call pre-placement meetings, where we've had on-site discussions where we've met the survivor, we've met the support worker that's with them, and that's a bit about checking the environment, making sure that everything is good for the person to come in. It's good for them to see it, but they get a full walk round of the business. They get a feel for it. We talk to them about how we operate as a team. There's a really good sort of informal discussion around how everything works. And they get the opportunity to ask any questions. Sometimes it's a bit challenging at first, and you slowly get them to talk and to open up and ask some questions around the business to make them feel comfortable. But the initial meetings is usually 1 or 2 meetings to discuss the role, to meet the site, meet the people in the business. And that's part of the checking process to make sure that it's the right environment for them, and that we know that we can try and support them.
Definitely. And we have a number of handbooks, one for the business member, one for the candidate. And in the candidate handbook, we're really trying to educate them on their rights. So really specifying the importance of a contract, knowing where to report, like, are they aware of where to report within the business if there are any issues? And this is first and foremost very helpful for them in the placement. But again, it's just setting them up for the future, making sure that we're building that sustainable independence if they were to continue in employment elsewhere as well.
Great, fantastic. We've had a really interesting question around what level of human intervention is now involved in the work readiness and matching process, and how much does the platform do in this space? I guess what I would say first, and feel free to add in anything, Misha, is what this platform doesn't seek to do is replace that really vital aspect of human connection in this process. We've talked a lot about being trauma informed in this process, and Ian referenced, the number of pre-placement meetings. What this platform seeks to do is to expedite the process to getting through the administrative, slightly laborious side of it in order to place a survivor in that opportunity quicker. From that point onwards, the element of human connection and meetings and those work placement readiness meetings will continue to happen as they always have done, because as Ian said, it's got to be a good fit for the survivor in regards to the work environment, the people they'll be actively working with, and for the business to really understand what they're entering into in terms of that agreement as well. So that will continue to be really prioritised. This is entirely about streamlining what has been was just been an entirely manual matching process up to that point. Misha, I don't know if there's anything you'd add in beyond that.
No, I think you summarised that very well.
Great. Maybe we could talk a little bit then about the geographic scope of roles available. That's one of the questions we've had in. So we've said we've got more than 50 roles currently available. Can you talk to us a little bit more about where they are, kind of really practically?
Yes, of course. So at the moment, we're operating across England and Wales. We're hoping to expand into Scotland in the next 12 months, which will be very exciting. The roles are available nationally. I think we've got quite a few roles in our bigger cities, but yes, from London to Birmingham, up in Liverpool, but we are always looking for more opportunities. I think firstly to give survivors that platform, the pathway to employment, but also making sure that they have a choice in the opportunities that are available. So yes, we'd love for more opportunities in those bigger cities, and as we expand outside as well, just to make sure that they're available.
Great. And we are tight on time, so I'm just going to do one last question. And it's a question for you, Pete, as chair. The Association of Labour Providers have put in the chat that they're really happy to promote to members who can provide employment. How can they help? So I guess as chair of the Bright Future Co-operative, how would you answer that?
Yes, please. I think is a short answer. So just to put this into context, we've now got 13 business members providing employment. We would hope very soon to have another couple across, and as you said, Amy, across sectors, including construction, including food retail, non-food retail, manufacturing, the list goes on. If you assume every single survivor is an individual the same as anybody else on this call, it is of paramount importance that we are providing career opportunities for that individual. Not that we're sitting here saying, well, we can only offer you a job in this sector or that sector. To do that, it is absolutely essential we get as wide a number of businesses joining us as we can. So whether it be the Association of Labour Providers or indeed anybody else, the call to action would be, if you know employers, get them to investigate, get them to talk to us. We would love them to join as business members of Bright Future. So yes is the short answer, Amy.
Great, thanks, Pete. So we're just going to begin to wrap up now and just say thank you to all of our panel members. I'm really appreciative of you coming and sharing your insights and your wisdom with us today. Apologies if you've asked any questions that we haven't managed to reach. Please feel free to email any further questions through to info@brightfuturecoop and we'll come straight back to you. We've had a load of amazing questions, and if there's anything more that we can continue to discuss, but I think ultimately we're looking to venture into new partnerships and new opportunities with businesses. Equally, we are looking to continue to recruit onto our board of directors, so if that's something you're interested in, please feel free to reach out to us. We're particularly looking with those who are experts by experience as well, so please reach out to us if this is something that you have personal experience in this space. We would love to hear from you and hear how your voice could contribute into that decision-making process and the governance of Bright Future Co-op, which is a really important aspect too. But thank you so much. It's been a real joy to meet with you today, and we look forward to partnering with you more in the future. Thanks so much and take care.